Welcome everyone to this special event organized as part of our Renaissance ongoing theme that we are researching and preparing our next issue on, which is on conscious parenting. And as part of that work, we are very delighted to host an actual physical event with our guests today. And with this issue of Renaissance and with this event here, we are also in a way kind of relaunching or giving another start to an initiative that was going on at Sri Aurobindo Society a few years back called Mother's Flow, which is now a joint project between and aurobharati. And we'll be doing more events and preparing more content for that Mother's Flow project in the coming months and years. But with this specific topic on conscious parenting, we are very happy to have our guests with us. I'll just briefly introduce them. Jayashree Ashok and Mr. Ashok, who join us from Bengaluru. Before I introduce them, I'll also just briefly give a context as to what was the thought process in, within the context of which this particular topic has been chosen. So, if we read Mother's writings on parenting, she's been very frank and straightforward like it is with other topics. But one of the things that she's said, emphasized at many places, is that the first thing a parent or a teacher must do when it comes to parenting or the upbringing of a child or educating a child is to educate oneself, is to know oneself and master oneself if one wants to be respected by the child, whether the child is one's own child or somebody who we are looking after as teachers. And she says one place that with very few exceptions, parents are not aware of the disastrous influence their own defects, impulses, weaknesses, and lack of self-control have on their children. If you wish to be respected by a child, have respect for yourself and be worthy of respect at every moment. So she has spoken about parenting not just as something that you do for a child, but parenting as a field of one's own inner growth, as a way of growing in one's own consciousness. So that's the theme that our guests today will be primarily exploring, if I understand correctly. So let me just quickly introduce them. They have a very long resume. I've just taken out a few bits here. So both Jayashree and Ashok are co-founders of a school inspired by the teachings of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. It's called the Creative School in Bengaluru. And Jayashree is the director of Creative School and also Pragya Living Wisdom Center, which is part of their entire educational institution. They're both inspired by the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother on integral education. Jayashree has worked extensively in the area of education and working on ground both with children, teachers, as well as parents, and researching and developing innovative educational approaches. She's developed two models called Sacred Parenting and Sacred Classrooms, which are entirely inspired by the integral education work of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And these models kind of use a combination of tools that can be practiced in everyday life, both by parents and teachers. She's had her own spiritual journey, brought her to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, but it also led her to take this plunge, giving up a wonderful, illustrious career at Microsoft as computer scientist and dedicate her life to the work of teaching, parenting, and healing work. So she has more than 16 years of experience facilitating healing through private sessions and workshops, and she's trained in various healing modalities. I'll just read out a few. Reiki, regression therapy, acupressure-based healing, which is emotional freedom technique. She's trained in non-violent communication, rebirthing breathwork, spiritual purification using Panchbhutas, art-based creative response therapy, voice dialogue, energy healing, and several others. So the topic today is conscious parenting lesson learned as a parent, educator, and healer. And Ashok is, as I said, co-founder, and he's also the trustee of Creative School. He has his professional degrees from IIT Madras as well as University of Wisconsin Medicine as a computer scientist. He also spends time teaching and working with children at Creative School while also working full-time as the Director of Development at Microsoft Research India. He's passionate about music, basketball, numbers and word puzzles, technology and humor. I've had the pleasure of knowing them for a few years. We first met at Bengaluru at a conference organized by Sri Aurobindo's Action, and then we did one Zoom at the peak of COVID, one Zoom interview with them as part of our work at Renaissance. So if anybody is interested, you can go through the video. It was called A Creative Gurukul for a New Age, because they work not only with children but with parents and teachers. And they were also part of our workshop yesterday that we conducted at Pondicherry University. Jayashree and I have had very long association in the sense for last 2 years. I mean, we've been part of a weekly study circle studying the works of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. We've read Isha Upanishad in deep detail and many other works. So every Friday we meet on Zoom. But really happy to have them here at Sri Aurobindo Society. And they are also joined by another member of their team from Creative and Pragya Wisdom Center, Kavya. She was also part of our team yesterday at the workshop. So welcome, Jayashree and Ashok, and the forum is all yours. Walk us away.
Thank you, Biruji.
Thank you to Aurobindo Society for giving us this opportunity to share what has been a very magical journey for us and completely guided by the Mother's teaching. So we're really, really grateful for this opportunity.
So we have been working with children for a long time. We have 2 beautiful daughters of our own who are in college now. But even before that, even before we had children of our own, we were involved in. We used to live in the US, and we were involved in an organization called Asha for Education. And the idea behind this organization was to, because we were living in the US and we were doing well, to give back to our country. And we started this organization when we were living there in Seattle. And that was a journey that we thought we were actually helping. But the people who that journey helped the most were ourselves. We went through a complete transformation. As the Mother says, doing any of this work is a sadhana for ourselves. Always, first and foremost. So, with that brief introduction, I want to actually start with words of Sri Aurobindo. The child, a soul meant to grow. The child was in the ancient patriarchal idea, the life property of the father. He was his creation, his production, his own reproduction of himself, the father, rather than God or universal life in place of God, stood as the author of the child's being. And the creator has every right over his creation, the producer over his manufacture. He had the right to make him what he willed, and not what the being of the child really was within. To train and shape and cut him according to the parental ideas, and not hear him according to his own nature's deepest needs. To bind him to the paternal career or the career chosen by the parent, and not that to which his nature and capacity and inclination pointed. To fix for him all the critical turning points of his life, even after he had reached maturity. In education, the child was regarded not as a soul meant to grow, but as brute psychological stuff to be shaped into a fixed mold by the teacher. We have traveled to another conception of the child as a soul, with a being, a nature and capacities of his own, who must be helped to find them, to find himself, to grow into their maturity, into a fullness of physical and vital energy, and the utmost breadth, depth, and height of his emotional, his intellectual, and his spiritual being. Sri Aurobindo. So I just want us to just reflect on this for a moment, and then get started.
So today we have a wonderful opportunity. Maybe even 50 or 60 years ago, this may have been difficult. But today, with the new consciousness that exists, there is the possibility of a new way of parenting, where we don't just consider children our property, but really as souls that are growing, that they have their own journey. So for us, the mother's teachings on how to bring up a child were the first book I received way back well before we even had children. And from that time onwards to today, what has influenced me the most is really what Beluji read out, that parenting and teaching is a sadhana. So we don't see it as something we do for the child alone, but really it has been, in my own journey, my children have been my inspiration for mastering myself. Our children have brought us together to really look at parenting, to really look at teaching, and work together as a family so that we may be the best version of ourselves and our children can learn from who we are. So this is something we've practiced and practiced and practiced with all our challenges. So we're here to share with you glimpses of our journey and to share with you the sacred sadhana of parenting, as we're calling it. Yeah. So I think Beluji's read out this quote, so I'll go over it very quickly. I think the first thing one needs to do is to become conscious and master oneself. That line says it all. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Yeah. This is the longer version of this quote. Yeah, let's go. So we can look at conscious parenting as two different aspects. The first one and the most important is really our own self-improvement, to grow and better ourselves as parents, teachers and caregivers. The sacred sadhana of parenting is the first part. And the second part is how do we actually relate and work with our children. Yeah? How do we relate and work with our children in an age-appropriate manner? How do we really help them grow to their fullest? Because a parent-child relationship or a teacher-student relationship is unique. Children do need caregivers. From the time they're babies all the way till young adulthood, they need us around them. So it's not like two adults with each other. The relationship of a parent to a child or a teacher to a child is that we are responsible. We are responsible on how we bring children into this world, and once we've brought them into this world, we just can't say, okay, it's not my business anymore. Yeah? We are responsible for them. You can't divorce a child. Yeah? Once a baby comes in, you can abandon your child. God help. But we cannot. Caring for children is something that once we take it up, it is a lifelong sadhana. And it's a beautiful one, provided we can recognize it as a sadhana. Yeah? So let's continue. I'm going to touch on a few. We absolutely love children. Ashok and me have spent more than 2 decades now. So we just want to share with you the joy we feel. Children are divine beings. All the way from, when we hold a little one, you feel like there is God in front of you. All the way to like completely open hearts. They have no barriers in their heart when they're born. So they just are like sponges. They absorb everything around them. They're very innocent, very surrendered. They're very authentic, playful, loving, joyful, all-embracing. Now, as adults, we have to really walk the spiritual path to reclaim these qualities we were born with. All of us are born with this, but the process of living takes this away from us. Let's continue. I always see children, especially young children below the age of 7, are pure feeling. I think a mother says young children. She also talks a lot about the early childhood and how They are pure feeling, they are authentic, they are truthful, sincere and natural. This is how children are. But we condition them the other way. Through experiences and through unconscious parenting, they lose the pure virtues that they are already born with.
Or even unconscious schooling in some cases. When I went to an all-boys school and I was told it's not okay to feel. So I had to learn how to suppress my feelings in that school. And later on in life, I have to spend years trying to come back into touch with my emotional side. So we can, of course, everything can be undone, but it's better not to have to do something and then undo it.
So both of us were very interested in how can we create an environment where the child can really grow. According to their age, they're growing to their fullest capacity. Because in our experience, the early childhood experiences really determine if the early childhood up to 7 years of age, the child is given an environment that is very conducive for their integral growth, the child will direct themselves. They will naturally learn. They are going to learn to just really settle down on earth beautifully. And when those years are missed, we end up spending the rest of our lives undoing what we've lost and bringing that back. There are also, I do believe that Sri Aurobindo's conscious, what he brought down on earth really gave birth to the New Age movement. There's a lot of wonderful research that is happening today in the universities on childhood stages of development and also on science and spirituality meeting. And almost all of them talk of how your early childhood really determines whether you can be this abundant, conscious creator in your life. When the mother says that we must be able to really, children must be brought out knowing that they can create, knowing that they can receive from the universe everything that they are aspiring for. That foundation happens in early childhood. For us to believe that our aspirations are supported by the divine, for us to receive those aspirations, the foundations begin in early childhood. In fact, there is enough research today. I'm combining a little bit of both because I really want to acknowledge the movements that are happening in the world today, which are moving towards Sri Aurobindo the Mother's teachings. Even modern science is coming up. They're saying that even as early as 3 years of age, a child, their capacity to form an aspiration and be able to receive that they can do later in their lives is formed. The innate trust, the innate feeling of security, beauty, safety, of choosing a life that is built with goodness is formed almost by 3 years of age. And 3 to 7 is again a critical phase. And beyond 7 years, see, whatever is incomplete in all of us, we keep trying to go back. Whatever was incomplete in our childhood experiences, as adults also we are trying to go back and complete that. So, conscious parenting, or as we call it, sacred parenting, because we always want to remember it's our path to the divine. We call it a sacred classroom, we call it a sacred parenting, because that is a yoga in itself. First job is to master ourselves. So, let's continue. Children are full of infinite possibilities. I remember, we were traveling in South America, and my daughter didn't speak any. At that time, we had just our older one, and she was 3. She didn't speak any Spanish, and we were in a bus stop waiting for a bus. She and another little girl, who spoke only Spanish, my daughter spoke English, played for 2 to 3 hours without a single word spoken, and they created I don't know how many games just from the bars. There were some bars there, the bus stop where you hold, it was just railing, that's it. Using the railing with no language, they played for 2 to 3 hours without creating any tantrum. Yeah. And that is there in every child. It's there in every child, but our artificial way of, literally forcing children today, many schools want the child to learn the alphabet and go in for an interview in school to get school admission. And I just feel like crying when I read that because it's not the age for them to be learning the alphabet. It's an age to surround them with beauty, to surround them with things that they can explore. And my God, you can never stop a child from learning because they are born to learn. They are born learning. None of us need to teach children. Sri Aurobindo said, the first principle of true teaching is nothing can be taught is so true. Yeah. They're full of infinite possibilities. They're naturally creative. They're spontaneous. They're multidimensional. All of these are fancy words today. Yeah? And we are born, all of us here are born with them. And unless socially conditioned, they can create games out of everything around them. Today, very quickly, children are introduced to toys. They'll create toys. They know how to create toys. When taught, so what happens? What makes us all lose that beautiful, creative spirit that we are born with? Fear-based teaching. Fear-based parenting. And the mother talks a lot about how fear should never be used to motivate a child to learn, either at home or in school. Because the minute you make it fear-based, out goes creativity. Are you with me? Yeah. So,
So, I want to give some examples from my own schooling. So, when we did not do homework, we had to put our hand out like this. And out came a ruler and they would hit you. So, we were taught at a very early age that we have to do homework. And how are we taught? Through fear. Not out of love for doing the homework, not out of love for the subject. But of course, naturally, some of us gravitated towards certain subjects that we liked. But it was really a fear-based environment that some of us went to school in. And what we want to do is, my favorite joke about, I wouldn't call it a joke, but my favorite pun on this is, we used to raise scared children earlier. Now we have to raise sacred children. That's why our school magazine is also called Sacred Children.
And from scared to sacred is a bit of a journey, not just for the child, but also for us. Children have innate goodness, caring, joy. Many times today we talk of how do you bring values into children. You can't bring it into the child. You can be a particular way and the child learns it because it's already inborn in them. They just need opportunities to allow that to blossom. And children naturally connect. So the part that I really want to emphasize here is we often think that what we tell children with our words is what they are hearing. But actually most of the times they are downloading our energy field. So this is why I think the mother talks so much about our own self-mastery because they take more from who we are. You can tell a child something and they know exactly whether you are following it or not because they can just read your energy and they can figure it out. So, with their open hearts, they sense others, they can feel intuitively. Let's continue. I think the thing I really want to point out is children are very open to impressions around them. Because they have such an open heart, it means if a person is around them, and that person is practicing cruelty, they pick up cruelty. If the person is practicing around them is lying, they pick up lying. They just download it because at that age, they are just downloading whatever their environment is. And this is all the more the reason when we choose to have children to really look at our own selves and our own awareness, our own self-mastery becomes very important. So what is conscious parenting? Very simply put, it's bringing consciousness into parenting. It's as simple as that. It's a powerful journey of knowing ourselves and our children as complete integral human beings. This is not parenting where it's just about, okay, I have to cook this meal and then I have to take care of my child getting ready by this time and then I have to do this and then I have to do this and then this and this and this and by end of the day, I'm asleep. Because the parenting chores have just tired me out. That is how most parenting is today. We get so busy doing things for our children that we forget that we and our children are integral beings. So it's a shift in how we look at parenting, not just as a to-do list, not just as something that we have to keep on doing for the child's physical growth, but it's parenting that's mindful of all aspects of life, physical, mental, vital, psychic and spiritual, to understand ourselves and our children have a psychic being and growing in alignment with whatever is our path, to connect to the spiritual dimensions of our life, to keep our mind as wide as possible, to really master our vital. All of these are as much part of our own growth, and unless we honor that, we cannot honor that for our children.
Yeah, one of the really unfortunate things is we go to schools and colleges and get big degrees and PhDs, but nobody teaches us how to be a parent. We have to, it's usually learned on the job. You have a child and then you start learning how to parent. So I think this is one of the most important things a teacher or a parent should go through before they actually start teaching, before they become a parent. We have to learn how to develop our own consciousness, how to realize that everybody around us is not just a physical body. Everybody is a human being, all these 5 bodies. And that is a very, very important lesson most of our schools and colleges left out.
So we are mostly used to automatic or unconscious parenting, so which means we just flow along, we don't really observe. Conscious parenting is going to need us to do something very important. Press the pause button. When we are watching a video, learning how to pause, it's almost like we're parenting, like we're watching a movie. Learning how to pause and take stock of where am I operating from, who am I at this moment, what is my child learning about me. Those are the parts that once we learn how to pause, there's a beautiful term which I learned from a Buddhist teacher actually. She called it sacred pause. Because she said the ability to pause and observe ourselves is going to give us choice. So growth and consciousness of parents, really when we bring in pause, when we become conscious of where we are operating from, then we have the capacity to parent from pure love, parent from compassion. Parenting has many wonderful, joyful moments. We all know that. It's as we celebrate and honor our children, these become their success areas. What we celebrate about our children, they're easily going to grow up and they feel that validation from us. And so they become their success areas as well. Many times, parenting is fear-based. So we project our own past failures and worries on our children. So what happens if I have failed in something? I may tend to over-prepare my child so that my child will not fail in the same area. Most parenting, if we can just really pause and look at it, is about how to help our children avoid failure. We become fear-based.
Sometimes how to make sure our children are not like us. I mean, especially if we fail in something, how they can overcome that. That is called the projection, right? We're projecting our own past failures onto our children. I have not been successful at whatever it is X. I'll make sure 100% that my child does everything possible to succeed at that. But they might already be really good at it. Doesn't matter. I'm going to project my fears onto the child. So that is how a lot of parenting happens. Now, if we are aware that we have this fear, and if we transcend that fear, then we can actually stop projecting onto our children. Simple example of projection. If I have failed in my 10th grade exam, just as an example, or if I failed in school in some area, I was not good at sports, let's say. I was terrible at sports. I want my child to be really, really, really good at that. Or if I'm really bad at math, I'll send my child to all the math classes possible, so that they don't experience the same failure as me. But they may experience different failures. They may really be good at math, it doesn't matter. I'm still doing it. Right? That is unconscious. or even in areas of abundance, for example. I've experienced lack in my childhood, therefore I go like that extra mile to make sure my child will never experience lack in their life. What happens? Whatever they ask for, I'm going to give it to them. And that causes a lot of other problems later.
So I think Ashok
I
covered this already. So projections are where we as parents project our thoughts, our beliefs and feelings onto our children. And projections can really cause, because what happens with projections is the child is actually having an inner experience, but as parents we have put our experience on them. I can give you so many examples of where I've done this to myself. As a child, I grew up in a household where my parents were very strict about the amount of junk food I ate. So guess what? I wanted to eat mainly junk food. Yeah. So I wanted that extra sweet. I wanted those fried foods, which were not good for me. I knew that, and then I would eat it and I would feel guilty. Now, when I became a mother, I went to the other extreme of making sure, because I had my own guilt. Oh God, I didn't always eat the way I should have. To overcompensate, I surrounded my child with enormous amounts of good. I became so particular as a mother on giving her the best possible food. But my love, while it was wonderful, I would give her the most amazing food, everything that the mother has on how food should be given to children, I followed it 100%. But what I hadn't done was deal with my own past. I was projecting. My need to provide my child that level of healthy food came from my own past guilt. Are you with me? Is it abstract? Yeah. So what happened is my kid naturally would not feel. So while I carried out, as per the mother's words, how it should be, within me, I had not recognized that this was my projection. It's okay for my kid to, sometimes eat a little bit of fun foods. We changed the word junk food to fun food. And once I understood that this was my need for myself, which I'm projecting onto my child then had the freedom to choose. And then she came into her own body wisdom. It was so beautiful because she could come into her own body wisdom and she knew when she wanted the dessert, when she wanted the vegetables, or what she has to do. Food became non-conflict based. Otherwise, it was about me preparing everything and then her not eating and then me sitting and worrying, saying, oh my God, the whole thing just came out of the window. I can think of so many parenting projections. Another example I can give you would be in our years, preparing for a test or exam was really a nightmare. So we have a school parent whose daughter is brilliant. Okay, this is a daughter in school. She's very effortless, very easy. She's very well prepared. She loves to learn, very motivated from within. But the mother has not deconditioned herself. So what happens, as the child came into 10th grade, 11th and 12th, the mother started getting very anxious and all their power struggles used to be, you are not preparing enough. You don't know the world outside. You are not preparing enough. And the daughter keeps saying, but mom, I'm prepared. I'm already ready. But the parent was simply not ready to believe that because it was their projection. They were projecting their own past experience onto the child. So we're giving you practical examples of the mother's words. This is why the mother says, first master yourself. Know that you are operating from a particular place and that is going to impact your child. So after a lot of power struggles, finally the parent said, you do whatever you want to do. You don't know the world outside, you prepare like this, you're going to fail. Is that how we want to bless our children? No. Right? Because finally we say, I'm going to give up on you. Because you're not listening to me. I'm doing this for your good. But the child is going on saying, I am well prepared, I am going to do well. But they're not ready to believe them. Yeah. I always have felt this, that the greatest gift we can give our children is our trust in them. Our trust in the innate goodness in them, our trust in their psychic being, our trust that as they grow up as whole, they will know how to make wise choices for themselves.
So why do we project? We project because we want the best for our children. But we project not from a place of abundance. but from a place of fear. That if I don't do this, something's going to happen.
Something bad is going to happen to my child, right?
That's where we project from. And we try to make everybody the same. My child has their own journey. They're different from me. We try to project our own past onto the child, or our own views onto the child.
So Benuji had, before we organized this talk, she had asked me a question, and I would like to address that now. She had said, why do you have parenting courses for your parents in school? Instead of just having a school that is working on integral education. Our answer is very simple. The child goes back home. The child is a free spirit. I think we just answered it with the previous one. What happens is, unless parents are also working on themselves, and parents are also deconditioning, they'll end up undoing the work that is happening in school. They'll end up undoing the inner strength or the confidence that the child is growing up with. Because it is important to work on integral education, to work on this new form of conscious parenting. It really needs us to work on ourselves. So in our school, we call it as a school for children, parents and teachers, precisely for this reason. And we have a lot of methods through which, mostly awareness-based, where we become aware of our projections, we become aware of our fears, and really learn to transform those. So, where are we operating from? This is the most common question we ask each other in school. So, whenever we are with children, whether it's inside a classroom or it's in our home, the first thing is to take stock, where am I operating from? What is happening in me right now? So that's why the pause button becomes important. For me to just pause and observe, it's not a very time-consuming thing. Just that quick observation of ourselves and tuning of ourselves is enough for us to navigate this. So, really, I think no one can articulate this better than the mother when she says to become conscious of the various movements in oneself and be aware of what one does and why one does it is the indispensable starting point. So what we do and why are we doing it, that is the indispensable starting point. And so this, of course, she's written this in the context of what we teach children. But this is not something we can teach children unless we have mastered it ourselves. So the child must be taught to observe, to note his reactions. I'm going to read that as the parent must observe and note our own reactions and impulses and their causes, and thereby learn to transform. Let's continue. So without self-awareness, we simply cannot go to self-mastery. In our awareness work, a lot of our methods of awareness is just observing ourselves, observing our body, our breath, the emotions, what are the thoughts that are happening, what are my intentions, what are my needs in this moment, what are my aspirations, what do I really want in this situation. To take stock of that is really what we keep. So any parenting course begins for us with learning self-awareness and practicing that over a period of time. So on a weekly basis, we all sit down and we practice at least a few times during the week. We close our eyes, observe what is happening and learn to journal that. Let's continue. So what we've done is really look at 5 aspects necessary for conscious parenting. The first is to acknowledge ourselves as integral human beings. Because like I said, otherwise, today's world, everything has just become about material living. We are so busy. Even doing good work, you can become too busy. We can become so unaware while doing good as well, right? So this whole journey of acknowledging ourselves first as integral human beings, and then our children as integral beings, making time for our own silence, for our inner connection. That's the first part. And the self-care needed, just like we look after our physical body, looking after our thoughts, mastering our emotions, listening to that inner voice that comes through our psychic being, listening and connecting to the realm of the spiritual energy that exists in the world. All of these are part of self-care. And I'm calling that out because most of the times in our experience with as parents, we rarely pay attention to our own self-care. Again, many parents who send children to our school because they want the children to meditate. I tell them children don't need meditation. It's we who need meditation. I don't have time to meditate, so at least let me make sure my child will meditate. Very good intention, but it's not going to happen, right? So, putting the oxygen mask on ourselves, learning how to take care of ourselves first, is the most important aspect of conscious parenting. And I'm going to say this again, it's not about what we do with children, it's about how we treat ourselves. That is the single most important part. To honor our lives as integral. We are not here just for material earning. We are here to grow as a soul. So that the next component of awareness, which I've already talked about, self-awareness is very, very key, and also awareness of others, awareness of situations, awareness of our children.
There are just two questions we have to ask here. Where are we operating from? Where is the other person operating from? Whether it's a child or anybody else in a conflict or in any situation, where am I operating from? Where is the other person operating from? These are the two foundational questions for awareness.
And the next part is connection with children. Many times, parenting becomes about, this is what I need to get my child to do. Rarely do we connect and see what is the child ready for. And this is another thing we've seen a lot in our school environment also, is sometimes parents' expectations from children are not always age appropriate. What a child is showing when they are 7 or 8 will be very different from what they are when they are teenagers. And as parents, we need to be able to connect to our children in an age-appropriate manner and be aware of the different stages of child development. Given this is just a 1-hour talk, we decided not to bring that also in here. But there's a lot of work we've done over 13 years on what is appropriate at each age as the child grows, with the teachings of Sri Aurobindo, the mother, and also looking at stalwarts in education like Rudolf Steiner, Maria Montessori. We've taken all of their different teachings, and in school, now we have a very beautiful system in which we are learning what is appropriate at each age and connecting with our children in age-appropriate ways.
One more thing I wanted to say about connection is, parents sometimes think that I have to be there 24/7 for the children. So it's not about being there all the time. That can be very suffocating for the child actually. It's about the quality, not the quantity of connection. Half an hour of undivided time with the child without looking at the phone, without getting distracted by other things is plenty. Right? Depending on the age of the child. At the teenage years, even they themselves may not want that much time with us. But depending on the age of the child, again age appropriate like Jayashree said, the quality of the time is extremely important. That connection. And the younger the child, the more physical touch they need. The 100% physical touch. That's what develops their trust in the world. The world is a safe place.
Actually, a lot of our ancient systems are very carefully, and Rudolf Steiner also talked about this, about how a child's soul, the non-visible beings, other than the physical being, how that merges into and merges through the child's body. It doesn't, unlike adults, for a child, it's only when the teeth fall, and in the Taittiriya Upanishad we talk of 5 bodies, 5 layers of human existence, which is the Annamaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha, the etheric body, the Manomaya Kosha, astral body, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, or the causal body, and then the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss body. So Rudolf Steiner's work was very interesting because he brought up that the astral body starts merging. So it's not like when the child is born, all the 5 bodies have merged. The child is born, only the etheric and the physical body are there. And so what happens is the etheric body is very well formed by a high prana, wonderful environment. It's only when the teeth fall. These days the teeth are falling younger and younger. What used to be 7 years when Rudolf Steiner wrote is now 5. By 5 the teeth have started falling. It's at that time that the astral body with all the old impressions starts merging in. So to use a lot of dance and theatre and movement and arts to express the changing emotional being, the child's vital being needs a lot of care at that age. And then comes the teenage years after puberty, where the child's causal body, which is the child's own ego structures, start merging in. So this is a beautiful contribution he made to education, where he said that the child's changing states of consciousness needs to be accommodated in the school. So he and others have done this kind of work as well. So I just wanted to acknowledge that when we talk of connection, we are talking of our understanding of how the child's soul is merging into their physical existence can help us a lot in understanding children. Because suddenly this very obedient child at the age of 5 is beginning to get angry more. And then the mother is saying, what happened to my kid? But understanding what is happening in the stages of development can really help us stay patient and understanding through all those difficult years. Yeah. The last part here, which is what we'll be diving into a little bit, is to really look at the full picture of family life, as we call it. We call it the full picture of family life because our children, our spouse, all our family members are here to help us in our evolution. Whatever disturbance we experience with our children is there only for our growth and transformation. So, because everything is inside us, so there are wonderful soul lessons that we can learn, and we look at some of those as we go along. So, parent and teacher inner preparation for self-mastery. The mother called it a sadhana in itself. So, spiritual awareness, mindfulness, deconditioning from old ways, fear to love, power and wisdom. So, this is sort of the overall journey. Let's continue. So, we come together in families to learn important soul lessons for our own growth and development. And children are often mirrors. I'm going to use the word mirror. What does a mirror do? Yeah. It reflects part of us that we cannot see. Right? When you see the mirror, you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that this was there. And a mirror reflects things back to us that we ourselves, that may be outside our radar. We think we know ourselves. But children and others in our family, close members, can sense us. And they can often mirror back to us areas that are outside our radar, which need perfecting, which need transformation. And we're going to share with you the mirrors that we have had to apply a lot as parents, a lot as teachers, and we'll just go through that.
So we'll go into several mirrors now.
Just as examples. Yeah. So the
mirror
first,
of fears. Yeah, the mirror of fears. So parent is afraid of something, child picks that up. Right? Child learns from who we are, not what we say. We keep repeating this. Not what we say or do. Not what we say, but what we do and who we are. So, I am afraid of something, my child will pick it up automatically. Simple example, I am terrified of dogs. My child is also going to be terrified of dogs if they haven't had a good experience with dogs. Right? So, that is a simple example.
So, we can give you, he and I came from very different backgrounds. Ashok was the obedient one, I was the rebel, honestly. So I'll come out and confess that. So when the fears that he grew up surrounded by, he had absorbed and now he has had to become aware of them and undo. I rebelled. So when I rebelled, I didn't pick up the fears around me, but I picked up a lot of guilt for rebelling because I didn't have the approval of people around me. So each of them has their own. This is the single largest area. We as parents can become conscious and let go of fears. So that's one. How do our children mirror our fears? Either they carry it out. So we have, I'm afraid my kid is going to fall. I'm afraid my kid is going to fall. I'm afraid my kid is going to fall. 5 minutes later, depending on the power of your thought, your kid falls. Yeah, so that's one way in which they mirror it back to you. So I kept saying, I think you're not studying hard enough. You're going to fail your exam. You're going to fail your exam. See, I told you no. I told you you didn't study. So that's why you failed. Right? That is a mirror. to get ourselves out of the way. Whether my child fails or succeeds should be dependent on their own internal journey. We don't have to bless them one way or the other. We have to, it is, for me, parenting is a journey that taught me disinterestedness. That's a big word. It's there in the mother's qualities. Detachment. Learning how to get myself out of the way so my child can grow up freely. And this is really why I know this talk is, I want Beluji. It's very nice for us to sit here and talk about stages of child development and pleasant things. But this work is important for all of us, because this is the work that's going to allow them to actually participate in that fully. Yeah. Otherwise, we have very beautiful schools with lots of learning aids, and then the rest of the story still remains the same. Yeah.
There's another fear-based example from our own school. So there was a very small boy, and at the age of probably three. At the age of 3, the parents had taught him the difference between good touch and bad touch. They kept emphasizing it. They had a fear of child abuse. Right? They kept emphasizing good touch, bad touch, good touch, bad touch. So one day this child goes home and says, there was this wolf man outside school, and he was trying to do bad touch. And I only got saved because Jayashree was there. You might want to just add to the story.
Yeah, so it was, the parents asked for a meeting with me, and I was just wondering what's going on, and they said, we want to talk to you about abuse. And I was really taken aback. So when they came and talked to me, they told me, we have to thank you because you saved our son. I looked at them and said, I did what? Mm-hmm. Then they told me this whole story about Wolfman who came, and because of my presence, he couldn't carry out the abuse. I said, nothing like that has happened. Because a child less than 7 years of age is in the world of imagination. So to give them information, it's perfectly okay for you to just say, okay, I think don't fill up with that notion of fear that you have to be afraid of certain types of people. Because a child at that age cannot comprehend the whole thing, is going to make up a story about it. And then, if he had not brought me into the story, this was just the mother's grace. This is where I see grace. Mm-hmm. She would have come back and said, my kid is getting abused in school. And I'm sitting here and thinking, where? It's really hard. I'm just giving an example here, right? So many times, children, that's why connection with children in that age-appropriate manner. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't prepare your children to be safe. But I think the way in which we prepare them must be in a way that is age-appropriate. Must be in a way that they can understand. So telling the truth in a way, just enough. You just have to tell them, this is not allowed. And that's enough for that younger child. You don't have to tell them about this boogeyman who can come and do all this to you. So that's unnecessary.
So these parents had the best interest of their child in mind, but they probably completely overdid it and did it from fear, not from love.
So with apologies, we really want to come out and say our purpose is not to say that parents don't love children. Parents love their children a lot. In fact, a lot of this is happening in the name of love. Yeah, so that's what we're calling out. In the name of love, I'm worried about my child. That's why I have to remind them for their exams. What happens? This is their whole career. In fact, we get told that their whole career will be ruined if they don't stress out right now. Right? But in the name of love, everything happens in the name of love.
Every parent wants the best for their child. But how are they doing it? And where are they operating from? That is the question. Are they operating from love? Are they operating from fear? Are they operating from projections or something else?
So a child who is more docile, more obedient will just pick up the fears, internalize it and manifest it. Or a rebel, like I was in my childhood, I rejected it and I grew beyond it, but it led to other complications. So let's
go to the second mirror of transformation.
So this is something very beautiful. Our children come into our lives. I think there are two main goals that we have. One is to destroy our ego. They make us aware of our ego and dismantle our ego. Thank God for that. Yeah. And the second part is to teach us to learn certain qualities in life. I'll give you an obvious example for this. Say a child is born with special needs. Sometimes there are families with overachievers, okay, high achiever parents, and suddenly they end up with a kid with special needs. And they have to sit there and scratch their head because their child is not meeting any of their expectation. Right? The child is supposed to be doing this, child is not doing this. So that child, this is where understanding our soul journey is important. Almost always, families that children with special needs are born into are needing lessons of love, are needing lessons of patience, are needing lessons of not being so goal-oriented. Yeah. So whenever there are children with special needs, the qualities that we have to learn to handle them, and the minute we learn those qualities, our parenting or our teaching becomes easy.
Of course, this doesn't mean every single family that has special needs child has.
Only these. We just gave an example.
That's just an example.
Yeah. But so, clearly there are lessons of unconditional acceptance that the parents are having to do. So for us to understand that a child has a role in our soul journey to bring out certain qualities. Each of our children gave us certain qualities. My older one really made me explore love, really made me work very hard to transform anger because I did not want to express anger. So I really learned to watch myself. So love and anger is what she led me to in terms of my own growth. My younger one brought in wisdom, power and wisdom. What happened by the time my younger one was quite different, and I thought, okay, I have figured all of this out, right? And then the second one comes with completely opposite needs. So where I had to be very, my younger one needed more holding. She wanted me to. My older one liked everything to be expressed politely and everything neat and true. Younger one was a complete opposite. She's so energetic all over the place. So I had to learn all over again. So each kid in our class, each kid in school comes for us to learn certain positive virtues. And I really learned about the growth of the soul through my younger one because she would sense things. She would sense things reading my body language, and she would often really poke me where I needed to grow. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to both my kids. Yeah. I think so to really look at the mirror of transformation, what is the positive virtue I need to develop in myself so I can be a more effective parent? That is what this mirror talks about. So our children mirror that back to us. They show us exactly what is the virtue that we need to grow into.
Mirror of unresolved emotions. Yeah. So when we don't work on certain emotions, that affects our parenting style. So one example here. So there is this person we know who had their first child. She was a working mom, and she was a little what do you say? A little unhappy with the fact that she might have to quit her job or stay at home for a long time. She was a little unhappy about that. So she continued her job. There was some resentment in her. That's the word I was looking for. There was some resentment in her. Even though she loved the baby. I mean, we all love babies. But there was some resentment in her that she might have to quit the job and not her husband. Right? And so she continued in her job, and she was putting the baby to bed with a lot of anxiety. And guess what? The baby wouldn't go to bed. Because she wanted the baby to go to bed at a particular hour so that she can start working after that in the night. And the baby purely mirrored it back to her.
So they came to us saying, we've tried everything, our baby refuses to sleep.
Our baby
So
has
we've really tried everything, has to sleep. Then I told her, what are you going through when you're trying to put, if my baby doesn't sleep, I can't finish my project.
Yeah.
That is when I get to work uninterrupted the whole day. Of course, I understood her perspective. At the same time, they have chosen to have a child, and this is where I come out and say, sorry, we've chosen to bring a child into this world. Once we have done that, the child is dependent on us. So for us to recognize that, and then she realized, oh my God, I'm actually really stressed out when I'm putting my kid to sleep. My kid cannot relax.
So what's the question she didn't ask? Where am I operating from? That's the question she forgot to ask.
So it's when she closed her eyes and she observed and she saw her whole body was, okay, where is this kid going to sleep? Where is this kid going to sleep? Where is this kid? That was her whole attitude. So obviously the child was not able to relax and would keep crying, would get hyperactive. Everything happened. So once she learned to just calm down, I told her to make it such a pleasant experience. You and the child both relax. She's like, if I relax, then I'll fall asleep, then I can't finish my work. See, it's like so many things come out. I'm like, yeah, that's true. You have to figure this out because you've chosen to bring this child in. And now you and your husband have to together decide how you're going to handle this because your child is needing you to relax so they can go to sleep. So it's as simple as this, right? Yeah.
Sorry, moving right side. Yeah. Mirror of over-attachments.
Okay. Lots of stories.
Lots of stories here. If we are over-attached to something, our child will show us the opposite. We're bringing some of the opposite to our life, right? I'll give you a few examples. I'm over-attached to being on time. One of my daughters will push that limit. I have to leave on time. I have to be on time somewhere. She will take extra time, right? The other over-attachment I have is keeping everything neat and tidy. One of my daughters is like me. She keeps everything neat and tidy. The other one will be the opposite. So, these are the tussles we have at home. Why can't you get ready on time? Why don't you put that thing on? Why is it on the floor? So, some of those things, right? And where is it coming from? It is coming from my rigidity. I should bring in a little bit of the opposite. Once in a while, if I'm late, it's okay.
So we'll cover this a little more. I'll tell another story from school, which one of our teachers, she was just amazing at craft and handwork and very devoted to the conservation of traditional arts and crafts. Great, wonderful, right? So there came a time when there was Ganesha festival and some potters had just migrated into our locality. And so she decided that she will walk with the children to where the potters are and they can all make their own Ganeshas. So she took them and on the way she told them about the importance of preserving Indian culture and how we need to do this. The children were in 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th grade. She went up there, they looked at the potter, they said, "Auntie, we don't want to do this." And they came back. And she was so angry. She said, children these days are spoiled because they have all these toys, they don't want to maintain culture, they don't want to maintain tradition. All this happened and I heard her out because she was really upset. The next day, the children came back with a bunch of Ganeshas. Another teacher who didn't know this had happened, who had nothing to do with conserving the Indian culture, walked up with the children, same potters, had a very good time and came back. All came back with Ganeshas. And she said, yesterday they didn't do it with me. But today, they went and worked with another teacher who didn't have an agenda. So sometimes, I know what I'm bringing up here is, it doesn't mean that we don't conserve and we don't respect. I mean, we all really follow Sri Aurobindo's, the importance of culture but are we over-attached to it? Are we doing this from joy or are we doing it to save the culture, save the world? Okay, children dismantle our ego here and I'm so grateful to them for this. I can give you another story where they dismantled my ego. When I came back to India, I was horrified at the number of malls, the mall culture. So I was very, very upset. It's full of malls, they're spoiling our children, spoiling our teenagers. So I decided I'm not taking my children to malls. Instead, we went to parks, we went all over the place. And then came 10 years of age. Mom, can we go to the mall, please? Okay, we want to go there. So I said, okay, we can go. She said, no, we want to go by ourselves. We don't want to go with you. So then I had to say no. At the age of 10, I'm not sending you. So that they allowed. They said, okay. And then they said, can we go with you? I said, yeah. Can you go with us every week? And I'm sitting there and saying, God, help me out of this. I can't stand malls and my kids want to take me exactly there. So then I really consecrated. I realized that, okay, I'm maybe overreacting here. And I just went saying, let me be open-minded and go with them to the mall. So they said, okay, but we want our own pocket money and you give us 300 rupees each and we're going to do our own shopping. You can watch us from the distance. They're powerful negotiators. You can watch us from a distance, but you cannot come there. We are going to bite ourselves. You can watch to make sure we are safe. I said, okay, deal. We went there. They came back with big grins. I stayed in a place where I could watch them, and they came back. Not one of them had bought anything for themselves. Every one of them had bought it for someone they loved. And I just sat there and said, you didn't buy anything for yourself? They said, oh, we don't need anything for ourselves. We just wanted to buy it for others. And who says God and generosity doesn't live in the mall? They dismantled me, and there I was, malls, consumerist culture, everybody is becoming only material consumerist. My children just dismantled that. Then I asked them, do you want to buy anything else? No, they are very happy. They bought gifts for their friends, for their cousins, even for me.
Even for her. Yeah.
Not one of them bought anything for themselves. So sometimes, I think it's consecrating, right? It's calling the mother's blessings. And I had to dissolve my own anti-mall ego. Over-attachment is a form of ego. And our children show us that ego so we can bring a little bit of humor into life. We can bring a little bit of the opposite and learn to do whatever we do with lightness. You know that beautiful word, disinterestedness or neutrality, equanimity. So we're doing it simple and plain without trying to save the world, without trying to save anybody. But just doing it with joy, doing it with ananda.
Coming back to the question again, where are we operating from? Are we operating from over-attachment? Do we want the best for our children? Yes. But where are we operating from? They pick up on that. Limiting beliefs. We can have a whole session on limiting beliefs. All of us have various limiting beliefs in our subconscious. Sometimes we are conscious of them too, but we don't want to change them because they are keeping us happy where we are.
And we can walk the same path.
We can walk the same path over and over again like this cartoon here. So, limiting beliefs come from various sources. And they keep us stuck. The most important thing in the context of parenting is we pass on our limiting beliefs to our children. That's why, of course, we have to work on them for ourselves. But if you are a parent, also work on it because otherwise your children are going to pick them up. Right? Example here would be, let's say somebody grew up in a very frugal setting in their childhood, where they've internalized that money is not to be spent. That is our limiting belief. Money is not to be spent. So I will never spend on myself. My children see me not spending on myself. They're going to pick up the same thing. Maybe we've come out of that. Maybe it was a difficult situation when we were in our childhood. We've come out of that. The children observe us and say, oh, I don't see daddy spending it on himself, therefore I'm not going to spend. So they don't transcend that lack into abundance. Right?
And how does this affect them? All of us know this. When we aspire things, money is also an energy that helps us create. And as long as we aspire with purity in our hearts and we aspire with our whole being, the divine takes care of it, right? Now, many times our limiting beliefs come in the way of children having their own beautiful ideas. And Sri Aurobindo talks about the king's idea that lifts you beyond yourself. You have to be free of limiting beliefs to follow that path. Most of the times, many of us are not able to follow what we want to. Our entire experience of creating the school has been just an experience of divinity. Because sometimes we'll be sitting there and saying, how is this going to happen? But we just aspire, we consecrate, we call, and the divine forces come in. Now, this is available to every human being in the world. Yet, when we impose our limiting beliefs, when we don't transform ourselves, we stop our children also from aspiring to go to the next level of their own consciousness. Yeah. So, many times...
So another example of limiting belief is the world is an unsafe place. People are out to cheat you. And if that is what we are sending out as a vibration, our child picks that up. They'll be afraid to go out. Right? Yeah.
To be able to create and make life divine, one needs to have that outlook that the earth is a beautiful sacred space that each of us can manifest and come into this physical reality with divine grace. We can receive it divine grace. So I think, yeah, so that's the mirror of limiting beliefs. But I should give a few more examples. I know we've been doing a monologue here. Would you like to actually have us pause and do some reflections, or shall we just continue? I don't know what the time is like.
Yeah. Yeah, if there are any comments or questions at this point.
It's next to the mic. Okay. No, it's not switched off those mics.
No, none of them are switching on.
Okay.
So, no, if there are any questions or comments at this point, I guess that's what you're saying.
That's
right?
where it is. We've been kind of just flowing along and covering some ground. And just, if there are anything that struck you, or if you have any questions or takeaways, because I can see some of you smiling, because I'm sure we've all done this.
I'm thinking that it's probably more difficult to teach. Yeah, so I was thinking it's probably more difficult to teach parents and even say stroke teachers than to teach children, because there's so much unconditioning to do as far as they are concerned. That's what I was thinking. And have you experienced that?
Yes, and that's why we need to use the right process for these. Mm-hmm. So what we're covering each of these points is actually there are processes to go into and transform yourself. So we are only covering the theory part.
Is it more difficult to teach you think?
I think it's to do with receptivity. I think one thing that we have found is conscious parenting is a choice. At any point we can slip back into comfort zone. So it is that love for our child, it is the compassion, it's the commitment we've made to the mother that keeps us going forward. Many times it's easy for me to say, I can't deal with this kid and put it on the kid, right? So it's a choice. So a parent who is receptive and who's made that choice, transformation is very easy. Yeah, but if they haven't, we can engage. I think the amount, when we engage, and we do need to engage as a school, we need to engage, we need to point it out. At the same time, we also get pointed out. Sometimes we also make mistakes as teachers, right? And then the parent points out saying, hey, how could you say this to my kid? Great, we need to do that. But I do think somewhere it does scratch the surface, if not now, later. But a very receptive parent will just slap it up. And a not so receptive parent, it's all receptivity as well, I mean. And how much do we want this new system? So in our experience, just with creative, working with the school and parents, the teachers are very ready, and many of them have seen a lot of transformation for their own family. They've seen changes in their outlook in life. So that has worked very well, because we've been children day in, day out. But in the parent community, I would say it's been a 50-50. Sometimes it's really, and also to gauge for us, what is the other person ready for? Everyone's ready for something. So it's to gauge that and then to move forward. If I kept thinking they will not pick it up, then I just do my job and give it to the mother. I said, okay, it's your force. For us, consecration is a daily, it's a must. Because it's not easy otherwise.
Yeah, sometimes people come to us and say, I have a problem child. So we don't want to talk to the child. We only want to talk to the parents. First and foremost, we talk to the parents and figure out where are they operating from. What is it that they passed on to the child? Because there isn't such a thing as a problem child.
There could be children having problems.
Children having problems, yes, but not a problem child.
Very good idea. I just want to ask how many students you have and what is the age range?
Okay, so we have 310 students now, between 3 and our oldest and 19. We have a 13-year program, not a 12.
And how many teachers?
A lot of teachers. Over 50 to 60, because we have also people who will teach only clay or only theatre. It's very wide. And 110 of the children come from it's completely free for 110 children. And because we have children of all our maids, drivers, the security guards, everyone in the school. So it's an integration across economic groups as well. It's very
You were not affected by the recent floods.
No, we are actually,
Actually,
both our school campuses have been safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I resonated with a lot of things that you guys brought out. Getting out of the way of the children, I struggle every day to do that. But the other thing you mentioned, the mirror of, I think it was the attachment, where you mentioned being on time. This is an everyday struggle for us, right? Because I realize I need to let go. I need to, she said it, by the way, my daughter is 7. But the waking up, the starting it, you have to start your homework now in order to finish it now so that you can be there now, especially in the ashram school. There's so much time spent outside already. There's only a little bit of time that she is at home with freedom to choose what she wants to do. So one part of me does not want to structure that time and let her be and choose how she does that. But there is the reality of it. How do you work through that and balance that?
I think the key, there are 2 things I'll answer. One is, when I'm reminding my child, am I neutral?
where are you?
That's the key. Inside me, yes, I know it's 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. I know that, right? Yet, can I be 1 plus 1 is 3? Or am I, 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3, right? That, because children learn that way. I'm sorry I'm demonstrating it in this manner, but children actually read us emotionally. They are not reading us intellectually. The logical ages come beyond 10. Especially young children, they will sense if mama is relaxed, there's a higher chance of them carrying it out. And sometimes it is also letting them know that there is something called a natural consequence. We skip.
Yeah, we've tried that.
And what happens?
Not much. She's like, yeah, so I didn't finish the homework or I'm late.
So just check and see if there is more. I mean, this is something only you can answer. Check on the attachment part, over-attachment to getting something done. There could be an underlying, see, like I said, this is not at all to belittle what we go through as parents. All of us, including us, have gone through this. We worry about them. So check and see what are my worries. And sometimes that gives us an idea on what we are going through. And what is it that can help me come back to neutral? What is it that will help me drop my worry and feel like it's okay? Those are the questions that
Is
I
part
will
of
ask you, sir. So what is the underlying worry would be my question for you. Is that helpful?
I guess I have to process it a little bit.
Process it a bit, yeah. Just check and see, and because it's almost always, but again, no, I don't want us to, we have to be very careful here not to get my internal state into such a way that I will make her obey me. Yeah? Because we can manipulate ourselves a lot. I'm not transforming myself to get my way with my child. I'm transforming myself because I want the highest consciousness in parenting. Am I making sense? And sometimes our children will come with the opposite. We have one more mirror that we're going to cover for you, which is a little more complex, but it's really worth looking at. I'll come to that very soon. Then let's see.
No, you can complete. I was just,
Yeah, no, please.
I was thinking part of letting go is not to just you having to worry about all these timings and, because the child is also aware that she has to go to school. She can be also responsible. I mean, the responsibility for her preparedness can be, she can be aware as well. It's not just your responsibility to have her know, because she's been doing it. I know the ashram school structure thing. So these kids probably can themselves know, okay, I have to prepare myself on these are my timings. I don't know, I'm just
It's not
thinking
high on
aloud.
her priority, you see. It's not high on her priority to be on time.
So
It is high on my priority. I realize that difference. But for her, she's, like you said, in the moment, in her imaginative world, she's got that thread that's hanging loose that's, so interesting that she has to be playing with it right now.
Yeah, sure.
No, again, it's very, very age appropriate. So, teaching a child at the age of 4 or 6 or 7 to be super responsible is not the.
So, yeah.
Yeah, at a later age it will come.
comes by itself. I mean, we've seen that a lot in school as well. Almost till the age of 9, they're like bear cubs and puppies and kittens. They love to play all the time. They're very, physical, and then suddenly around 10 or 11, we see them beginning to. In fact, that is the age when they're ready to start taking self-responsibility. So if I had my little one was in her imaginary world. So what I would do, I would scoop her up with her imagination, have her tell me the imaginary story and take her to school. So there's no, I don't know if that made sense. But sometimes you just have to allow what you need to do to be part of that story. You may have to weave in a little bit so that you're not disrupting their imagination. And it's not becoming a power struggle.
Yeah.
That's basically it. So it is, we can have a whole hour spent on power struggles.
Yeah.
Power struggle is where, you are having certain needs, she's having certain needs, and but again, I think looking at over-attachment and the next one, maybe it's a good time to
Yeah,
do
maybe
the
it's a
next
good time
one.
to.
Yeah. This is the middle of disowned selves. Okay, this is a system that I trained with, which I found extremely useful to understand family dynamics, organization dynamics. Is one of created by Hal and Sidra Stone. They are psychologists, called the voice dialogue process. The voice dialogue is a very interesting system. It tells you that we all have certain primary ways of functioning. That is our innate nature. That is part of us. So what they call as primary selves. So for example, I can say I'm very hardworking. Okay, so that is my primary self. I work very hard. I'm very, goal-getter. I get a lot of things done over the course of my day. Then they say, many times when you're very identified with your primary self, when I'm very identified with hard work, there is a small part of us that gets disowned. What they call as a disowned self. And maybe that disowned self is couch potato. I'm so hardworking all the time that I don't have time to be a couch potato. And they brought up this beautiful concept that the family is a system of energies. So when you are too much in your primary self, someone in your family will start mirroring back to you your disowned self. So if I'm super hardworking all the time, maybe one of my kids would like to laze around, and then I get irritated with my kid for lazing around because that's my disowned side. So if I'm extremely punctual all the time, my kid, because the family is also a system of energy that is trying to come into balance. This is a very deep system because in the system, it also shows us how our ego can get identified with one way of being. We can get very proud, oh, I'm always on time, or I'm very, very hardworking, right? So like I said, one of the main aims for all children is to dismantle the ego. They do it beautifully because they sense you. They're beyond logic, so they sense you right there. So I'm this super hardworking, spiritual mom. My other one may be a couch potato watching TV and eating potato chips. Because that brings humor. That keeps the system in balance. So does this mean that I don't value hard work? No. I absolutely value hard work, but every now and then, I become a couch potato with a sense of humor and take a day off. That is what children remind us to do. So they remind us to bring in a bit of our disowned selves inside. Not just children, our spouses also do it.
I'll give one more example.
Yeah.
So there was a parent who came to us saying her son was in college and they're saying he doesn't want to do any of his courses, he just wants to play video games all the time. I don't know how to get him to stop. So one of the first questions we asked, of course we talked to the parent first, right? Like I said earlier. So one of the early questions we asked is, what is your view on wasting time? And it turned out that she cannot even waste 1 minute. She says you have to be productive all the time. That was her answer. You have to be productive all the time. You cannot waste any time. There's enough to do. And what is the child doing? Mirroring the opposite. With his own self. So her primary self is a productive, always productive self. And disowned self is wasting time.
And she has raised her children, mind you, to be productive all the time. So there comes up to a certain age, the child may follow, then the minute they come into their own being, they're going to poke you exactly there because it's disowned. And then they call it teenage rebellion. It's actually not rebellion. We have to understand. See, when I developed a sense of humor about malls, my children stopped asking even. It's like now we go there when we need to go there. It's become a non-issue. It's just neutral. We go there when we need to. We come out when we need to. We can have spiritual experiences in the mall. End of story, done. Yeah. But that's the part that they bring into our lives. It's so beautiful, and as young adults, they do that a lot. So if we are too much on one, if the pendulum is on one side, it needs to swing to the other before coming to the middle. And that is what parenting teaches us, the middle path. The neutrality, the disinterestedness, how to hold all your values and yet have a sense of humor around it. How to hold it, how to consecrate it, how to be detached in what we do. And as we live that, our children can actually even pick up our values. If we can, by our values, I don't mean it with ownership, whatever it is that we want to inculcate in them, you will see it happening. If it's not happening, the two areas I would really check, I mean, all of these areas, of course, but this over-attachment and, yeah. My daughters said it, I was a lot into meditation and very rigorous spiritual practice. They said, we're also spiritual, but not as much as you. We like to have our fun. So then I realized, oh my God, they think spirituality is not fun because I'm always, this aware person trying to do this, trying to do that. Even conscious parenting can get too much sometimes. You have to have a sense of humor around it. So that our children bring, and they make sure that, and today they're both young adults and they'd be like, now we know why you did what you did sometimes. And we're grateful for that, but that's it. So I think we covered the mirror of his own self.
Yeah, one more thing I want to add is...
Was that clear with his own side, sort of? Was it very abstract? Because I've tried to cover in 5 minutes for this much longer theory.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is, as we hear some of these things, we might tend to go back and feel guilty about the times we have made mistakes as parents, right? But remember, everything can be undone. Our parents wanted the best for us. They also might have made some mistakes. Nobody's perfect. We want the best for our children, we've also made mistakes. In fact, what I like to say is that we made different mistakes for our second daughter than our first daughter. At least we learned from that. But it doesn't mean the second child you don't make any mistakes. You make different mistakes. But you learn from it and move on.
We are sitting here as two people who made so many mistakes, we are able to actually make a presentation of it.
When I was child, I was thinking, ये बड़े कैसे सोचते हैं, हमें समझ नहीं पाते कभी भी, सब कुछ हमारे भी कुछ प्रायोरिटीज होते हैं, कुछ करना रहता है और always all the time behind us. And मैं सोचती थी जब मैं बड़ी हो जाऊंगी तब मैं I'll understand the child properly. I will not be like this. जब मैं now I am in a mother position, I'm not remembering that.
So that's when we need to pause, and that's why it's called a pause button, right? We need to bring that pause in and really call for the mother's grace, because all of it happens through grace finally. Even to practice this, we need grace.
Just wanted to say that I think the mother has made the most extraordinary statement of any educator. She says, a person has a right to remain ignorant if they want to.
True. Yeah.
So actually, if they're not ready to learn, if they're not ready, no amount of pushing is going to do it. That's the problem in here.
So we need to fully embrace our role as parents, and this is something we keep sharing. Parent and child are equal in respect, but we are varying in responsibility. We can be friendly parents, but we're not their friends. And I really want to come out and say, because today's world, at least the parent community we have, we think in order to win the child's approval, we give the child everything. that the child asks for. And they say, oh, we're such friendly parents. No, we are still parents. We are not their friends. So we have to understand and embrace our role fully. And the three guiding forces of love, power, and wisdom. Wisdom, understanding the long-term consequences for our choices. I think that's really where we are. So, in summary, what are the lessons we need to learn from our parenting journey? And we need to check in our ego baggage. Yeah. So, be ready, ego. This is the biggest area. That's why the mother very wisely called it a sadhana. Because they will expose our ego. That is their job. We have to do our job of dissolving it. And then comes the beauty of our journey with them as our catalyst, with them inspiring us. I think I'll just end with two quotes that we would like to read out.
And above all, set them the right example. Be yourself what you would like them to be. Give them the example of disinterestedness, patience, self-control, constant good humor, the overcoming of one's little personal dislikes, a sort of constant goodwill, and understanding of others' difficulties, and that equality of temper, which makes children free from fear. For what makes children deceitful and untruthful and even cunning is the fear of being punished. Very important. If they feel secure, they will hide nothing, and you will then be able to help them to be loyal and honest. Of all things, the most important is good example. Sri Aurobindo speaks of that, of the invariable good humor one must have in all circumstances, this self-forgetfulness, not to throw one's own little troubles on others when one is tired or uncomfortable, not to become unpleasant, impatient. This asks for quite some perfection, self-control, which is a great step on the path of realization. If one fulfilled the conditions needed to be a true leader, even if only a leader of a small group of children, well, one would already be far advanced in the discipline needed for the accomplishment of the yoga, the mother.
Essentially, the only thing you should do assiduously is to teach them how to know themselves and choose their own destiny, the path they will follow, to teach them to look at themselves, understand themselves, and to will what they want to be. That is infinitely more important than teaching them what happened on earth in former times, or even how the earth is built, or even, indeed, all sorts of things which are quite a necessary grounding if you want to live the ordinary life in the world. For if you don't know them, anyone will immediately put you down intellectually. Oh, he's an idiot, he knows nothing. But still, at any age, if you are studious and have the will to do it, you can also take up books and work. You don't need to go to school for that. There are enough books in the world to teach you things. So, thank you all for this wonderful opportunity to share.
Thank you. This was really wonderful, Jayashree ji and Ashok ji. And I have met their younger daughter. And when you said that she taught you wisdom, I still remember the poem she wrote. She and Jayashree together were part of a 3-month course we did online. And she wrote a beautiful poem at the age of 17 on faith. And it really came from that very deep place in her heart. So I could just sense that why she would be the teacher of wisdom for you. So thank you so much for sharing that. I was reminded of one sentence from Sri Aurobindo where he says that family is essentially an ego-based institution. and your constant reminder that dismantling the ego, children come in our life or family forms together so that everybody can be on the path of dismantling that ego. It just really, with all the examples that you gave, you really showed us that yes, yes, it's an institution built on ego, but the purpose can be, and then he adds, if you bring consciousness into it, it can become your field to outgrow that. So thank you so much really for bringing that point for us. Really important. And thank you all for joining us for this session.